Today we're going to have a great conversation. The topic is self over situation. How to live a life of health, happiness, and wholeness. And it's a great honor to be here and have my dear friends here with me. And we have Sádvi Bhagavati Saraswati and Dr. Bruce Lipton. So, yes, give them a big round of applause. So we're just going to start this conversation, this deepening conversation, with just what does the term self over situation mean to each of you? Sádviji, would you like to start?
Sure. First of all, thanks so much, Chris, for jumping into this role so lovingly. Originally, our spiritual lecture series, as you've seen over the last few days, has been just individual lectures. But Bruce and I decided that rather than just each of us jumping up and giving a lecture for 45 minutes, it would be so much more meaningful and enjoyable and alive and beneficial for all of us if we actually opened it up into a conversation. And Chris so lovingly jumped in to play our role as moderator. So thank you all so much. The title really stems from something that is so pervasive, whether you're in a healing profession on a physical level, whether you are in a spiritual role, whatever it is. We all so frequently hear people or hear our own selves saying things like, I would be great if only, or if I just had this, or if this problem would go away, then everything would be perfect. And for me, it's actually illustrated really beautifully with my favorite joke that I always love to share, which is of the man who goes to the doctor and he says to the doctor, there's something really wrong with me. My whole body hurts. When I touch my knees, they hurt. I touch my head, it hurts. I touch my back, it hurts. And so the doctor runs every test and every scan. And at the end, he calls the man in and says, well, the good news is there's nothing wrong with your knees or your head or your back. The bad news is your finger's broken. And since your finger's broken, whatever you touch, it hurts. And the reason that I love that joke so much, and for me it's really the foundation of this session, is that's how so many of us live. We blame things in the outside world. Like the man thought the problem was his knees or his head or his back. We blame whether it's our genes, my parents gave this to me, whether it's something in our physical situation that we're struggling with, a health challenge, whether it's our in-laws, whether it's our spouses or lack of spouses, or children or lack of children, or how far we live from our jobs and so how much we have to commute. Whatever it is, that always gets the blame for why we are not happy. It's always a matter of one thing between me and happiness. And this time together is really about how can we live from a place of self with an awareness that my inner state, my happiness, my wholeness is not dependent on things in the outer world. And my beloved friend doesn't even begin to encompass how I feel about Bruce. Let's just call him my beloved. We'll call that a noun instead of an adjective. Speaks about this from a scientific perspective so beautifully in terms of the role of the environment whether the environment is our bloodstream, whether the environment is our own thoughts, on literally our physical existence, on everything down to the cellular level of which genes are being expressed or not expressed. So he's really taken this spiritual teaching that the sages and the saints and the rishis of every tradition have told us for thousands of years, which is you create your reality. Your thoughts create your reality. And Bruce has brought that down to the scientific and cellular level for those of us in the world, of which there are so many and such a large percentage, for whom if it's scientific, it's real. And so he's brought that level of reality to the power of the self. And so we thought it would just be such a wonderful opportunity to have this conversation on it today.
Thank you so much, dearest. Thank you so much. I so appreciate my dear friend, because I came from a world of science. I had no background in spirituality, no background in any of the programming and information that you all have received. So I was like completely unaware of the spiritual realm as a scientist. As a scientist, in fact, you don't even mention the word spirit in a laboratory anywhere. You don't even mention the word mind in the laboratory anywhere. So I was completely unaware of this, but I have to say that once I saw a connection between the invisible realm and the physical realm, it profoundly changed my entire life. And the significance is I started to follow through on what I learned, and I'm very proud to say that my teachers were cells. I studied the cells, and when you study them long enough, they tell you things. And I started to realize the nature that they were telling me. And it's interesting because on a scientific background, I can talk about all the spiritual things after learning from my dear friend, but on a scientific background, something happened in 1925 that changed the world in a sense of awareness, but didn't change the world in activities and functions and processes. Our awareness changed, but we haven't really brought it into the world. They say, well, what happened? And in 1925, physicists said that our vision of a universe split into an invisible energy realm and a material physical realm was a total illusion. That everything is energy. The whole thing, there is no matter in this world. And to summarize what the meaning was, a famous physicist in 1930 by the name of Sir James Jeans said, "We have been led to believe that the universe is a great machine, when in fact it is more a great thought." And the reality about that was quantum physicists have established since 1925 that consciousness is the primary mechanism of creativity of the world that we experience. In fact, a more recent article in the journal Nature, which is like a scientific mainstream journal, was an article by a quantum physicist at Johns Hopkins University by the name of Richard Henry. And his article was entitled "The Mental Universe." I know the last two lines in the article because they were like so powerful. And here's what the conclusion of the article was. The universe is immaterial. It's mental and spiritual. Live and enjoy. And this is so exciting because science is coming out saying it mental and spiritual. It's like, oh my God. But that's the quantum physics part. And the reality about it, why is that so important, as Sádviji had just mentioned, it's our thoughts that are manifesting this world. Now you could say that's a spiritual thing, and now I say not only is it spiritual, now it is fundamental basic science of the universe. And it says then the thoughts are creative. Well, if the thoughts are creative, then who is having the thought? And you start to realize, I'm having the thought. Well, then the truth is simple, as Richard Henry said, you are creating this world with your mental activity and your spirituality combined. And then all of a sudden it says, well, then if I'm creating the world, then my original belief that when things didn't go right, I was a victim. The universe wasn't supporting me. You know, it's like, oh, I try so hard and the universe is not giving me things. It turns 180 degrees around. And it basically says this: we are creating this world. And then I say, your mind is creating this world. And then I give you the science that says there are two minds that are operating at the same time. One is called the conscious mind, and one is called the subconscious mind. I say, what's the difference? The conscious mind is where you are as a spirit, an entity, a unique identity. You are in that conscious mind and perceiving the world. I say, what about the subconscious mind? It's not a creative mind. The subconscious mind is habits, things that you've learned and you experienced in your life, and they become habits. So the subconscious mind is not thinking, creating. It's subconscious mind, push the button, play the behavior. So here's the point. When we are in our conscious mind, we are connecting our spirituality to the biology and the physical planet that we're in. And that is the creative mind. That's the one you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I wish I had this, and I desire that, and these are the things I want. And then you go out and start the day, and then guess what? 95% of the day, you are not operating from the conscious mind. Science has recognized 95% of the day, because we are thinking 95% of the day, our behavior is now controlled by the subconscious mind. I go, okay, so what's the difference? And the final conclusion of this is the conscious mind with your creativity has your wishes and your desires. The subconscious mind was programmed by other people, your mother, your father, your siblings, and your community. So what is the difference? You wake up with a wish and a desire of what you want, and then the rest of the day, you play the programs that you got from other people that don't answer your wishes and don't support your desires, and all you see is the consequence of it and go, oh my God, why is it not working? And the answer is because you don't see, because remember the name is subconscious, below conscious. So when that behavior is playing, psychologists will tell us 70% or more of the programs in the subconscious are disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting behaviors. So the simple reality is this: we have great wishes and desires, and yet our life is not controlled by that. Our life is controlled by the programming, and that programming is the disempowering program. So all you see is the consequence of the invisible subconscious, which will sabotage all the desires and wishes you have. And then to conclude that, what if you just didn't default to the subconscious? What if you just stayed in the conscious mind? That's called being mindful. And why is it relevant? Because when you stay conscious, keep your mind present, you are the creator of your life. And when people are in mindfulness, they manifest their wishes, their desires, and their happiness. So for all of us, it's sort of a wake-up call. You think you're running your life with your wishes and desires? It's an illusion. You're really running your life with your programs acquired from other people.
Thank you, Bruce. Salvaji. So that's very revealing that this subconscious programming is running our lives. So what can we do? What are the steps of the pathways to really get into a space where it's not controlling us anymore?
Well, I think that Bruce has explained it so beautifully in terms of the alternative to the subconscious being the conscious. And this is the reason that regardless of what path of meditation you go into, regardless of what stream of spirituality you go into, there are some really fundamental aspects, which are mindfulness and presence and awareness. And so, for example, if I said, okay, on the count of 3, we're all going to get really angry. You've got, I'm going to count to 3, and in 30 seconds, not acting it out, but inside, not the acting of anger, but you've got 30 seconds to actually feel full of rage. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. So what most of us notice is it's really hard. And the reason that it's really hard, even though every one of us has something to be angry at, may even be something from today or yesterday. Of course, we have things from decades ago that we're still hanging on to, but we even have recent things. And yet, interestingly, we almost cannot become consciously angry. And the reason is that that rage, that fury, I can become consciously disapproving. I can become consciously aware that what someone or a government or an organization is doing is wrong. That's different than rage. That's different than the stuff that leads us to say things or do things that later on we go, oh my God, what did I do? That's the stuff that ends up ruining our lives, our relationships, our health. It's the stuff that leads so many of us into alcohol, drugs, chocolate cake after chocolate cake, whatever our drug of choice may be, because there's this experience inside and we don't know what to do with it. But that experience comes only when we are not conscious. And that's why you cannot consciously become full of rage. And so, Chris, I think the simplest solution is mindfulness. And if you look at the meditative traditions of the world, you'll realize the emphasis that they place on it in terms of just little things like, take 30 minutes, eat this raisin. I mean, anybody who's been to a meditation retreat or workshop, one of the things they do is they'll give you a grape, a raisin, a tiny little thing that most of us swallow without even thinking about it. And they'll say, spend the next half an hour eating this raisin, eating the grape, or doing walking meditation, where you literally make it pretty much from one end of the stage to the other end of the stage in the full 90 minutes of the class. Why? Because by bringing our mindfulness to the present moment, we give ourselves the possibility of happiness. You cannot be happy tomorrow. This is actually really sad when we realize it, because so many of us are forsaking today for happiness tomorrow. I'll just deal with this again today so that tomorrow I can be happy. But the truth is, you can actually not be happy tomorrow. You also can't be happy yesterday. Your only possibility for happiness is right here in this moment. It's the only opportunity we have, right here and right now. And so if I'm not here, because my mind is elsewhere, as Puja Swamiji says, in Paris without a visa. If I'm elsewhere, then I'm being run by my subconscious, which means I have no chance for happiness. Because as Bruce explained so beautifully, the subconscious is just this programming that leads us all to later wonder, who was that? I mean, I really love you. Why did I say all those things? How did I possibly act in that way? I'm a yogi. Right? I mean, who was that who took over my body and shouted or cried or drank or smoked or did whatever I did that's not in line with how I consciously identify. Well, that's this subconscious programming. And so if I can just keep bringing it back to the present moment, with my breath, with a mantra, whatever I choose to use, that's all it is. It's just about bringing it back. It's not some great esoteric, super complex, you've got to do, you know, a really, really long course and a beginning course, an advanced course, and get this degree or that degree. It's just being here in this moment. And yeah, the mind has a habit to wander, and we bring it back. And then it wanders, and we bring it back. And for every moment that we're able to have it here is a moment when we are accepting that invitation of the universe to be in joy. It's a moment in which we are opening ourselves to the truth of who we are, the source of who we are, which is that source of joy.